Yep. Hi everyone. uh, hello everyone. I hope I am audible properly, right? Good evening, Kanav. Yep. Hello everyone. I hope I'm visible as well properly, right? Good evening, Tushar. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ganesh. Let me just share my screen in the meanwhile. Yep. Good evening, Priyanka. Uh, yep. So, yep. How is everyone? Yep. Yeah. By the way, any doubts from the previous session? In the meanwhile, rest of the people are joining, right? Any doubts? Anything you want to ask, or any conceptual doubt you have, you can ask in the first 5 minutes, and then we'll continue with the topics, right? So I hope you got the code which I did yesterday, right? So please, if you haven't gone through the code, please go through yesterday's code. Sir, I'm not able to do any attendance from first video. Prayash, uh, chalo, the team will let you know if there is any issue. Just try it. Just go to the website and try it once again if there is an issue. So Balaji will be doing a form validation project. But before that, we have to cover functions and DOM manipulation, right? And then after the words, we'll move on to the project part. So today's session, we'll be studying about functions, right? What do you mean by functions? What are functions? Arguments, parameters. And after that, we'll be covering DOM, right? DOM stands for Document Object Model, for those of you who don't know. And after that, finally, we'll be ending the session by doing a mini project, right? All right. So any doubts from the previous session? In the meanwhile, people are joining. Okay, Girish is asking difference between let and const. So Girish, the basic difference that I can tell you is that in const you can reassign a value, right? But in let you can reassign a value, but in const you cannot. Okay, and they both are block store. That is the main difference, I would say. Okay. We mainly use const while declaring functions and while declaring anything. Uh, while declaring variables also, because it is safer to use, right? In const, if you declare anything with const, you cannot reassign the value, right? There are very less chance of your code being hacked by someone else, because they cannot change the function. Once the function has been made, it has been made, it cannot be changed. Sir, where I can get the previous lectures of JS? So okay, I'll tell you. So head over to YouTube, okay? And here type let's upgrade. Okay, you land up on this page. Go to their home page and click on playlist. You'll see a playlist option here. Okay, if you click on the playlist, there are many playlists that are coming up. So this is the playlist that this is the bootcamp that you guys are attending, right? So click on this bootcamp, and you will see all the three lectures, right? So all the three lectures, this is day 1, this is day 2, and this is day 3, which is live. So this is where you'll find it. And if you want to find other bootcamp lectures as well, so you'll find all of those here only. So like if I were to tell you this Java and Python, this is also done the previous month, so you can find all of these here. All right. Clear, Mahesh? Good evening, Setu. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Yep, yep. ठीक है, चलो. Now let's continue. In the meanwhile, I think if there are no doubts, we shall move forward, right? I think all of the concepts are clear from both the days. So, Paraji, async functions, I can tell you, but you might you might get confused because see, in JavaScript, right? In JavaScript, what happens is, let's suppose you are calling an API. If you don't know an API, it's an application programmable interface, right? So when you call an API, It takes time for the data to come from the backend part. So let's suppose we are not doing advanced JavaScript here. So we are doing only the basis of JavaScript. So if I want to talk about the advanced part of JavaScript, so when you tend to call when you tend to call the API that is coming from some other backend, right? So it might happen that it might take time for the API to come and for the data to load, right? In that case, what will your JS do? Right? So in that case, your JS will execute the code that is written after the API. It will not stop its execution, right? When the API comes in, when your code loads in, it will stop the execution where it is, and it will go back to the previous execution where it stopped, and then it will continue its process. So how are you able to achieve this? You're able to achieve this with async functions. Async functions are nothing. They just wait for the code, for the API, for the data to come from the backend, and in the meanwhile, while the data is coming from the backend, they continue the normal process which is there. And when the data comes in, it stops the normal execution. It fetches the data, it loads the data on the screen, and then continues the normal process. So you are able to do it with the help of async functions. Async is the short form of asynchronous, right? Asynchronous JavaScript. So that is the main funda behind async functions. I hope I'm clear. Right? Faizan, you'll get the certificate. So log into the website. So I'll tell you. I'll tell you after the bootcamp. Just remind me. At the end of the file. So, hello. In the meanwhile, if you don't have any doubts, let's get started. So today, yeah, today we'll be starting off with functions. I hope the font size is properly visible to you guys. So today we'll be starting off with functions, right? In that, we will be studying the. If you don't write async, hello Jatin, I'll not the PPT. I'll give you the link today at the end of the session. If you don't write async functions, it returns error. It will return nothing because if you don't have any data, what will it show? Right? It will show nothing. As simple as that. I told you, right? JavaScript tries to solve errors on its itself. It will hardly give you any error. It will give you it will give you an error only if you are making some major mistakes. Otherwise, JavaScript will ignore that and its normal execution will continue to happen. So if you don't write async functions, nothing is going to pop up in your screen because the data is not yet there. If the data is not yet there, what will it show? It will show nothing, right? So that's all. Chalo, in functions, so we'll be covering functions today. What are functions? First of all, how do you declare them? Okay. Some basic questions around functions. Tushar, promises are different thing. Async so promises are async in nature, but promise is a whole different concept, right? Chalo, ठीक है. What are functions? Anyone? Anyone would like to answer? What do you mean by functions? Or if you have come across functions in your life? If you are coming from a Java or a C++ background, anyone, what do you mean by functions and what are functions used for? A function is a block of code designed to perform a particular task. Great, Navi. Anyone else would like to give any answer, any different answer from this? Yeah. Block of reusable code. Okay, Utpal. Neeraj, block of code. Prajapati. Calling itself. Prajapati calling itself. It is much more than calling itself. You're getting confused because between the recursive function and normal function. Because if the function is calling itself, then it is called a recursive function, not a normal function. A piece of code kind of says a piece of code that performs a specific task. Yeah, well said. Girish says a function is a block of code which can be reused whenever you want. Perfect answer, Girish. Hmm. Set of instructions doesn't say the set of instructions. Tushar, set of instructions take input. Yeah. So I think most of you are correct here. Okay. Functions are blocks of code which can be reused if you want, right? Which can be used by the user as and whenever he wants. Okay. Huh. Okay. The functions are nothing. They're just a piece of or a block of code. Okay. That can be reused by any one of you, by a user, as and whenever number he wants. Okay. So how do you declare functions? How to how to declare functions? Yeah. How to declare functions? Anyone? So they are declared by a keyword called a function. Right? You mention a keyword called a function, then you give a name, then you give a function name, right? Then you give a round bracket. So in these round, there's a name that is called here, which is called, right, of these round brackets. I'll come to that later on, but for now, you can assume that these are round brackets, and then you put in two curly brackets. Okay, and whatever you write inside those curly brackets are a part of your function. Okay, whatever piece of code, whatever things you declare, whatever things you write here inside these curly brackets, these are a part of your functions, right? Now, for example, so function, let me give it a name. Let's suppose hello. Then you close these two round brackets. Then you put this curly brackets. Okay, and let's suppose I declare a variable where a equals to 10. All right. Then I declare another variable where p equals to 20. Okay. Now, so now pay attention here. So whatever things, right? So I have declared two variables, and these variables are inside these curly brackets. Right? So what I meant here is whatever piece of code you write here in this curly bracket will remain here itself. If I were to give you a more technical term, what are all these things? This is called a block scope, not a block, a scope. Okay. What do you mean by a scope? A scope is nothing. It is just the contents or the code that is there inside the curly brackets. So if I were to tell you what is the scope of this function, it is var a and var b, because these two are inside a scope. Okay. I'll tell you a practical example. Let me just open my VS Code. Okay. Let me just open my VS Code and let me just make a new file called as day3.js. Okay. So let me declare a function. Okay. I told you how to declare a function. We give a keyword called function, then we give a name, let's suppose hello, then two round brackets and then a curly bracket. I'm declaring a variable var a equals to 10 and var b equals to 20, right? So in these brackets, right, I can only, so what do you mean by a scope? So whatever I write in these brackets, I can only access them here. If I try to access the values of a here, it will give me undefined. Why? Because it is not in the scope. Whatever value I write inside this curly brackets, my value is present. I can access the values inside these curly brackets only. If I tend to access this outside the curly brackets, it will not be printed. It will give me undefined. As simple as that. Okay, I'll show you. First of all, I'll just do one thing. I'll just console the value here. Console.log A and console.log B. Okay, as simple as that. Now I'll quickly run. How do you run your code? How do you run a JS code with the help of Node? You type in Node and then you type in the name of your file. The name of the file. So the name of my file is day3. Okay. So, and after that I have to invoke a function. I'll tell you the invocation part if you're not sure. But for now, see, I got 10 and 20. Why? Because the value of a is 10 and the value of a is 20. As simple as that. Now let's, if I try to print the value outside the scope, outside this scope, I'll get undefined. I'll show you. See? Okay, I cannot leave a space here. Okay, it is giving me error. Let me just go to my console and then let me type, because this node is very strict. It will give me an error, whereas if I type it here, it will not give me an error. Right. Okay. It is not giving me undefined. It is giving me a is not defined. That means that it is undefined, right? In literal sense. So why is a undefined? A is undefined because it is not in the scope. It is not inside these curly brackets. As simple as. Okay. Again, reiterating, it's a very important concept. What do you mean by a scope? The scope is nothing. It is just a block of it is just a block in which the contents inside the function can be accessed. That's it. If you try to access these values a and b outside your scope, it will not be. They will be undefined, not defined. If I try to print it here, I'll get the values as 10 and 20. Okay. So are you clear of scope? If you have any doubts, do let me know. That was all what you meant by a scoping. It is very important concept, so that's why I, right? Clear? Scope. What do you mean by scope? Type in yes or no. It's I mean, it's easy, but it can get confusing sometimes. So that's why. Is it, if it is clear, do let me know. Clear or not? Okay. What about others? Naveen, clear hai? What about others? Is the concept of scope clear to you? Okay, Harsha, clear hai? What about others? Narendra is also clear. Chalo, theek hai. Got it. Theek hai. So this was all about scoping. Now, so this is, you have declared a function, right? So I'll tell you. Now, after you declare a function, okay, you need to call it. That is called a function invocation. So I'll tell you. After declaring a function is nothing but a local scope. Yeah, local scope is a type of a scope. There are also global scopes that are there, but yeah, you can say it's a local scope. It's not a local scope. I would say a functional scope, because it is the scope of a function, that I would say. Okay. After declaring a function, you have to invoke it. Okay. अब देखो, I have created a function. Okay. Then how will my compiler know that whether I have to call it or not? It might be a case that I have declared a function that I don't want to call. I just want it to be there. right? Maybe I want to use it in the future sense. So how will your compiler know that you want to declare it? So this concept of declaring a function is called function invoking. It's called function invoking. How do you invoke a function? How do you invoke a function? Now, you invoke a function by typing the function name. Okay, typing. Rithi, it will be some form validation. Okay, by typing in the function name with these two brackets. Okay, so if I come here, if I want to invoke this function, that means if I want to call this function, so see, if I don't call this function, it'll not give me any output because I haven't called out this function, right? So if I call this function without invoking, it will not give me any output. But if I invoke it, I type in the name of the function and I type in two round brackets. Now if I run the output, now my function has been invoked. Now my function has been invoked and it has given me the result. As simple as that. All right. So as soon as I typed this, it got. As soon as I typed this keyword, it got called here, right? And with the help of this, I will be able to invoke a function. As simple as that. Right? Clear है? What about functions? How do you invoke a function? ठीक है? चलो, अभी तो हो गया function part. Now, I told you, right? This has a certain meaning attached to it. This has a certain meaning attached to it. Now, I'll quickly come here. And let me call a function. Okay? Let me declare a function. Let's suppose function, and let me give it a name of day 3. The name can be anything. And I'm putting in two round brackets. And here I'm typing, let's suppose console.log console.log hey there. ठीक है, और एक काम करते हैं, let's do one thing. Let me just quickly copy this and paste it in the VS Code. चलो इसी को let's comment it out, uncomment it out. ठीक है. Now I declared a function, let's suppose day underscore 3, and ठीक है. Now I'm printing out the value. I'm just typing in console.log, let's suppose hey there, and here I'm invoking it day underscore 3. ठीक है. So this right here, who will tell me what are, so these are two different terms. If I'm invoking it, it is called it has a separate name. When I'm calling it, so this is function declaration, this is function invocation, right? Quickly copy it and I'll tell you here. Okay, so this is function invocation. Okay, and this right here is function declaration because we are declaring a function here. This here is function declaration. Okay, so whenever you are invoking a function, okay, whenever you are invoking a function, these set of just a second here. Whenever you are invoking a function, these set of round brackets that you put in here are called arguments. Okay, what are these called? These are called, this right here is called an argument. It is a very important interview question. That's why I'm focusing more on that. And this right here is called a parameter, not this. So whatever values I type in here, let's suppose E and T. In this E and T, these are called parameters. Okay. And this right here, E and T, is called an argument. Okay. So what is the difference between the two? What is the difference between an argument and a parameter? An argument is called while invoking a function. Right? This is the invocation part. Whereas a parameter is called when we are declaring a function. That is the main difference between a parameter and an argument. Very important from interview point of view. All right, I hope I'm clear with this part. So I'll also write it here. Parameter versus argument. Okay, chalo. What are arguments first of all? While invoking a function, the values that we provide inside the round brackets are called arguments. Okay. Whereas a parameter, what is a parameter? It is nothing, just the opposite of it. So I'll just quickly copy this part only and I'll paste it. While declaring a function, the values we provide inside the round brackets are called as parameters. Right? And this is a very important interview question. Very important interview question. What is the question? Difference between an argument and a parameter. Difference between an argument and a parameter. Okay, I hope I've made myself very clear in this part, right? Any doubts, anyone? Argument and a parameter. Any doubts? Any doubts so far? Any doubts? So parameter is just nothing. When we declare a function, whatever values we give inside the round brackets, they are called parameters. And while invoking a function, if we put any values inside those round brackets, they are called as arguments. Right? Any doubts? No doubts. Oh, clear. Clear, everyone. Everyone. So I want a yes or no in the chat box. Come on, guys. A parameter is one of the variable in a function, and when a method is called, the arguments are the data we pass. Exactly, Tushar. Everyone, I want a response in the chat. Is it clear or not? I can see from Harsha, Utpal, Tushar, Girish, World's Knowledge, Prajapati, Chess, Jaimala, Amit, Mukesh, Tilak, Nanthini, Mahesh. What about others? Jatin. Clarify. So function parameters are listed inside the parentheses of the function. Function arguments are the values received by a function. So function are there. So uh, Naveen, these values are not received, right? You provide these values to the function. Initially, what will happen? Uh, how will the compiler interpret the code, right? So it has the function. So it will see if it is invoked till now, it is not. Then it will come on line number 6. Then it will see, oh, the function has been invoked now. And what are the values that you're providing? You're not receiving, you're providing these values here to line number 1. Okay, that is the main difference. Kind of actual parameters and formal parameters. Sorry, actual arguments and formal arguments. I haven't heard any keyword like this. Let me just check it. Actual arguments versus formal arguments in JS. Let me just see. The difference between actual and formal parameters is the actual parameters is used to invoke or pass an information while sorry. The difference between an actual and a formal parameter is that a parameter is used to invoke or pass the information while executing the program. In contrast, formal parameters are declared while calling the function. Not clear enough. In C++, when a function is called, the values passed to the functions are called as actual arguments. The parameters specified in the function are called formal arguments. I think it is the other name of arguments and parameters. I'm not yet sure because I haven't come across any this. I haven't come across this term till now. The formal parameters are the variables defined by a function that receives a value. So I think formal parameters and parameters are same. What I am inferring from this statement. And you said formal argument. I think they are same. I think they are same. I think there's no difference in that. Don't quote me on this, but I think they are more or less same. ठीक है चलो अब इसके बाद now let's see how do you pass an argument. So let's suppose I want to make a simple function, and what will the function contain? Let's suppose I'll take in two values and I'll find the and I'll find the product of that. Okay, so how will you do that? Let's suppose I have a function of multiply. Okay, now what will happen? So my first scenario is that I will get a predefined values that a user will not give me. I, as a developer myself, will perform a multiplication. How will you do that? I simply declare two variables, var a equals to 10 and var b equals to 20. Okay. Now, as simple as that, I'll just console a into b. Okay. This is the normal function for it. Now I'll quickly invoke it. I'll call it multi. Okay. Now let's run, and I get 200. Okay. As simple as that. And now my scenario changes. Okay. I don't want myself as a developer to give the values. I want you guys, you as a user, to provide me the values, and whatever values you provide, I'll do the multiplication of that. Okay. How do I do that? Now comes the role of arguments and parameters. So I need to provide a value which you want to give me in the arguments. Let's suppose first time you give me values of 20 and 30. Okay. Now you have provided me the value here. Okay. I want to receive this value in the function declaration part. How will I do that? I'll do it like this: a comma b. Okay. Now what has happened? This 20 value has been stored inside a variable, and this 30 value has been stored inside b variable. Simple. Now I'll just quickly do a into b. Okay. And I get 600 here. Now let's suppose I want some other values. Let's suppose now I want 5 into 5. Okay. Remember, this is the same function, right? So I'm reusing a function. What if I did not use functions here? I would have to write the same code n number of times, whichever number of times I want to perform the same operation. But here I am just calling out a single line, and that single line is calling again and again the same function. Okay. Now so let's use my scenario changes, and I want to multiply 5 into 5. In this case, just a sec. Just a second. Let me declare some variables here. So let c equals to a and var t equals to, let's suppose, b, not t, b. And after this, I do multiplication of c into b. So what I did is I just did nothing. Whatever values were present here, I just stored it in some other variables, and that value I'm printing out here. Okay. Now let's quickly check a value. So I'm getting 600. Now I want to print out, let's suppose, 5 into 5, 5 into 5. And here I get not a number. And why is that? Just give me a second. Let me comment out this part. Oh, silly mistake. Yeah, silly mistake. Okay, I have to pass it like this. Okay, now let's see. So now I'm getting 25. Now let's suppose a third user comes in, and a third user now tells me to multiply some other values. Let's suppose 10 into 15. Okay, so I get 150 here. Okay, so you're getting the user functions, right? I'm calling the same function again and again. Instead of writing the whole piece of code again, I'm just writing a single line, and this is giving me the desired output that I actually want. Got it? Acha, now I have a question for you all. Okay, let me comment out this part. So I want you guys to tell me this 20 and 30 here. Okay, what are these called? And this A and B here, what is this called? So type in A, B answer and 2030 answer. What are these called? Let's see who gets this first. So what is the question? I want you to guess what is the technical name for this and what is the technical name for this that you have. Let's see. Okay, I have an answer from Monu Kumar. What about others? Girish, Harsha Khandelwal, World's Knowledge, Kanav, Nivan, 10 and 50. 50, where is 50 here? World's Knowledge, Utpal Patel. A and B are for parameters. Okay. 20 and 30 arguments, A, B parameters. Okay, what about others? I can see only 10, 15 responses. Yeah. Okay, Jatin Prajapati. What about others? Aman, argument. Aman, argument. What? So argument is A or B, or the argument is 20 or 30 here. Parameters and arguments respectively. Yes, Amit Sharma. Okay. So again, as correctly said by most of you, this here is called an argument, and this here is called a parameter. My name is Shivam Kumar. All right, sure. So then change your username, right? How will I get to know your name? Chalo. ये तो हुआ function declaration and invocation. ठीक है. Now the next concept we have is loops. Okay, loops. So loops, it's very simple. So I'll quickly come in the VS Code and explain it, right? For those of you who know, it's well and good. Those of you who don't know, please bear with. Please bear with. Okay. So what are loops? So I'll give you an example. Basically, there are two types of loops. I'll tell you. I mean, there are others, but broadly there are two categories. One is a for, one is a while, and in while you have a do while also. You know? Sorry. So you have for, and here you got a while. ठीक है, here you got a while. So let's suppose I want to print numbers. I want to print numbers from 1 to 10. So there's a specific format that you need to give while printing out the numbers and using for loop. How to do that? So you have to mention a keyword called for, these round brackets, and here you need to specify 3 values. What are those? First, you need to declare a variable. Let's suppose for var I equals to 1. Then you need to specify what is the ternary ending part. Where should your loop terminate? I'll say if my I becomes less than 10, if my I becomes less than 10, I want to terminate. And what should I increase or decrease? I have to decrease I plus plus each and every time. Okay. And here inside within the curly brackets, you type in whatever function you want to prepare, whatever logic you want to write. So let's suppose I just want to print out these values from 1 to 10. Console.log I. Okay. As simple as that. Okay. Now I got the values from 1 to 9. Why 1 to 9? Because in my condition I told that my I should be less than 10. Is 9 less than 10? Yes. Is 10 less than 10? No. That's why it hasn't printed 10. Now if I print it, now the values will come from 1 to 10. Okay. So what exactly is a for loop? Let me quickly come here in the notes part. It has certain parts attached to it. So this is the part. Okay. This part right here is called the initialization. Okay. This part right here is called the initialization. Initialization. Okay. Now the second part here is condition, the stopping condition that you want to put. Okay. This is the stopping or terminating condition. All right. Yes, not even C world knowledge. No, sorry, Shivam. Even C++ and Java also have the same format. So yeah, pretty much. And this right here is your increment or decrement function. Whether you want to increment, you want to multiply, you want to divide, all these things will come here. Increment slash decrement. Okay. So this is the format of your for. It has 3 parts: the initialization, the terminating condition, and the increment, decrement, minus, multiply, and things like that. All right. So this was all about for loop. Now about while loops. Yeah, while loops. What are while loops? There are also type of loops. Okay. So, but what is the difference? The difference is only in the syntax. How to declare a while loop? So I'll quickly come to my VS Code. Now instead of while loop, instead of for loop, I'll now use a while loop. Okay. How to declare while loop? You call a keyword called as while. Okay. While. And so inside while you need to give the condition, only the terminating condition. Okay. So I'll tell you again, in for loop, you are giving all the 3 conditions inside your round brackets, but in while loop, you'll only give the terminating conditions, meaning where your while loop will end. That's it. So obviously, I need to declare a variable for first of all. So let's suppose var I equals to 1. And here I'll give the condition, right? I told you I'll give the condition. I is less than, let's suppose less than equal to 10. And what operation I'll perform? I'll just perform console.log I. Also, I need to increment it each and every time. So I'll just do I plus plus. Okay. Now let's see the output. Here you get 1 to 10. ठीक है. अच्छा, what if I don't increment my I plus plus? What if I don't increment my counter by 1? What will happen in this case? Anyone can give a wild guess what will happen in this case if I don't increment my counter? What will the values I'll get here? Anyone? Kanav, you can. 1 print 10 times. Okay. Definite loop. Naveen says. Amit says infinite loop. Monu says infinite. Kanav also says infinite. Tends to infinite. Tushar. Utpal is infinite. Harsha Khandelwal says infinite loop of 1. Anirudh says, okay, I got different answer. And Anirudh says 1 to 10. Might be. Prajapati infinite loop. देखो, चलो let's see. I'm pressing enter and my code is running till now. It is printing 1 1 1 1 1 1 and it will go on forever. It will go on forever. It is still printing. It will still, so if you see now, it is still printing. It is still printing the value. So it will go into an infinite loop. I have to close the terminal in order to stop it. Why infinite? Because each and every time I'm printing 1, it is seeing if 1 is less than 10, it is printing 1. 1 is less than 10, it's printing 1. So this condition is never met and my while loop will go on forever for the rest of your life. As simple as that. Okay. So that was the main funda behind loops. Okay. There are also many type of loops, many type of different loops that you get in Java. Let's suppose you have a for each, you have a do while. So I'm not covering that. So I'm just covering the main loops that you get usually have, and that loops that you usually use in your project. So if you want to go through other loops as well, you can feel free to explore those. All right. All right. Acha. While true means while your statement is true. I mean, so we use while to. So I'll tell you a use case. We use while to. Let's suppose you want to perform some operations, and in that operations you want your loop to run every time. Okay, you want your loop you want a loop to run every time. So in that case you use while true. That means while it is true, it will keep on running, and it is true every time until and unless you explicitly write a false there. That is the use case of that. Okay. Chalo. And similarly, so this is increment, right? If you want, you can decrease it also. You can use a decrement operator. So let's suppose I want to use a decrement loop while I is less I equals to 10. I've declared a variable, right? While there is a condition of I is greater than or equal to 0, I'll print out I, and instead of I minus minus, this time I want to decrement the values by 1. I'll do I minus minus. Okay? Now if I print the values, I'll get 10, I'll get 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and 0. ठीक है? This is all about loops. So while loops, let me just copy out this part. ठीक है. Well, let me just write it again. The format has been spoiled. So where I equals 0, right? While I'll put in the condition here. Let's suppose I is less than equal to 10. and I will console dot log I, and I will increase the operator every time. Okay. So it is also the same. This is the, let me use a straight line. Huh. This is what? This is the declaration part. This is the condition part. Okay. This is the main logic that you want to perform, and this is increment slash decrement. All right. Increment. Sorry. Initialization. This is a condition. This is the main logic, and this right here is increment. You can also put decrement here, right? And plus multiplication, anything will work. Okay. So this is all about loops for now. And also there are other loops, like there's a loop called do while loop that I want you guys to explore. There is a loop called for each loop. Okay, and some other as well. These are, so this is only specific to JavaScript. This is not there in C++ or Java, and this is there in Java and C++ as well. So I want you to explore out this part. Okay, this is your homework kind of a thing. So explore these out. Yeah, foreign is also there. Yes, explore. So explore. Explore all the remaining types of loops. Examples I mentioned: do while, foreign, for each. There's also a foreign. There's also a for off. So things like that. I wanted to guys. These are very similar, so it won't take much of your efforts. That's why I'm suggesting you to please read the talks, watch some tutorials on practice and questions around these. Okay. So with that being said, loops is completed. Do you guys have any doubts in the loops? Do let me know. And if it is clear, do give me a confirmation so that I can move ahead. Is this clear? Yes or no? Greece. So Greece, there is no difference as such. You are free to use whatever loop you want, right? So both will perform the same thing. But most of us prefer to use for loop because it is more convenient. That's it. You can use while if you want. Okay, clear hai? Balaji, so there are functions like arrow, async, and null functions as well. So, ठीक है. Anubhav clear है, Jatin clear, Utpal clear, Naveen clear. What about others? What about others? Is it clear? Clear है? At least yes or no? Please give me a confirmation, guys. Amit, okay, okay, Kanav, okay, okay, Navdesh, Prajapati, Harsha. Yes, I'll tell you Navdesh. Don't worry. Prajapati and Vendra, Shivam. चलो ठीक है. Now I have a question from Navdesh. ठीक है. He says, how do you find the end of an array using loops? ठीक है. First of all, why do you want to use a loop here? There's no need to use a loop. ठीक है. Let's suppose I have an array. Const arr equals to 1 2 3 4 5. ठीक है. Now there's a method in order to find the length, that is arr dot length. And if I print the length of arr console.log, error, it will give me the desired length. I think don't use the brackets here. Yeah. So this here has a size of 5. Why 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you want to access the last index of your array, how will you do that? You will do that console.log arr. Let me store the length in some other way. Or ठीक है, ये भी छोड़ो. Console.log. What is my array? It is array. And what is the length? It's arr dot length. That is what? That is what? That is 5 here. And by 5, what do I need to do? I need to decrease it by 1. So like this. So this here, I think I made some mistake. Let me do one thing. Let me store the length in a variable. So let length equals to, what is the length? It's arr dot length. And simply console.log arr of length, whatever the length is, minus 1. As simple as that. So you'll get 5. If you want to access the second last element, you have to do arr dot length minus 2. Here you will get 4. If you want to access the third last index, you have to do length minus 3. Here you will get 3. Okay, and things like that. Okay, so this is how you can do it. Chalo. With that being said, let's move ahead. So we can also do it directly. So I don't want to confuse you guys, so that's why. So if I do console.log arr, and inside arr I need to use the length. Arr, no, we will not use a dot operator here. We can, but it is not recommended. You're saying this, right? Arr dot length minus 1. This you are saying. Error कहाँ चल रहा है? Or you meant to say this. So this is also giving an error. Okay, Balaji says do console.log minus 1. Console.log arr of minus 1. Console.log a. This you are saying, right? But why will it work? What is minus 1? Error आएगा obviously. ठीक है, चलो you guys see this, what's the error, and get back to me. Uncomment arr. अच्छा. No, you cannot. So Navdeep, you cannot ever have a negative index. So your index will always start from the 0th index. It is a basic rule in all the programming languages that the length of this array always starts with a 0. It cannot start with 1. It cannot start with 2. It will always start with 1. ठीक है? अरे चलो, you guys do it. No, I don't want to waste time with this. ठीक है? चलो कर लेना. अरे I know how do I print it, but I want you guys to try it out. I already gave you a way, right? Now you guys do it. Chalo, okay? Let's move ahead now. So the most important part of today's lecture was DOM. What is DOM? Anyone? What do you mean by DOM? DOM. So I'll tell you the full form. Don't give me the full form. I want the definition. Okay? Document object model. This is a DOM here. Okay? No, DOM is not an array, Shubham. I don't want the full form. I don't want the full form. I want the definition. What do you mean by DOM? Yep, mono. DOM is a relaxed structure of HTML elements. Great. What about others? Any other answer apart from this? Any other answer apart from this? No issue, Shivam. I'll tell you. If you don't know. Come on, guys. Any other answer? Apart from mono, I haven't received any other answer. Hellfire says access the elements and modify. That is the use of DOM. Yes. Use of DOM, we can add dynamic content to our web page. Yes, correctly said, Girish. But in this is no idea. Okay, Harsha says DOM is the interface between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Not CSS and JavaScript, only the HTML part. I don't know, Shivam. DOM does not have other name. DOM is a DOM itself. Creates dynamic web pages. Okay, it's like a hierarchy of elements. That's also a good answer by Amit. Okay. So DOM is nothing. DOM is just a tree like structure representing representing the or all the elements in HTML. Okay, and it helps us to dynamically change values as per our needs. Yes, Shraddha, correctly said. Okay, so it is nothing. It is just a tree that represents all the elements of the HTML, and with that also we can change the contents of that dynamically. So what do I mean by a tree structure? Let me show you an example. Let me so we'll be doing a form project today. Let me make a form.html file. Okay, I have to make it at the ultimately, so let me make it just now. Form.html and form.js. Okay, let me make a boilerplate. Okay, so this is a simple boilerplate that I have made. Now let's suppose I make a div. I make a div by the class name of container. Okay, now this container, let's suppose, has a child called as child container, and that is also a div. Okay, now this div also has a body section, so dot container body, and this body, let's suppose, has some details, so dot container details. Okay, and let's suppose you also have a footer section, so dot footer, and let's suppose dot footer details. So what has happened? See, I'll tell you. I have made 1, 2, 3 divs, and each div has a child div 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So how will your JS or JavaScript file interpret this? I'll tell you. This right here. Let's suppose you got a root. This is called a root. Okay. All right. And this has 3 childs. One is container body. Second, the third one is footer. So how will it be represented? It will be represented like this. It has 3 childs. First one, then the second one, and then the third one. Okay. So this one is container. This one is body container, and this one right here is footer. Okay. And now this container has a child container, container body has a container details, and this has footer details. So how will it be represented? It will be represented something like this. So it has a single child, and that child is container details, right? Container details. And then we have, sorry, this is child container, not container details. And this right here we have container details. And this we have a footer details. Okay. now see what has happened here. What has happened here? Let me just decrease the silence. Okay. So you have root elements, right? And inside those you have divs, and those divs also have a child div. So if your JS, okay, let's suppose I want something that I want to access this container. I want to access, let's suppose, this child container, and I want to change its value. Or let's suppose I want to change its color with the help of a click. I want that whenever I click on this child container, I want its color to change to blue. All right. So if I was using CSS, and if the uh, div was static, that means by default I can easily do it by giving it a class name and changing the background color, right? But I want that I, as a user, I can make sure that whenever I want to change, or whenever I want to click on that div, only then the color should change, not by default. Not by default. Okay. So I need to tell my JS file, right? So I need to have a div, and that div should change its color on a mouse click. Okay. How will my JS interpret it? So it will see you have a root element, well and good. Inside the root element, you have got three divs, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And if I want to come to the child container, it will first go to the container, its parent, and then it will come on to the child container. This is how your JavaScript will get to identify which div I am clicking, and which div I need to change the color to. Okay. This is what your DOM stands for. Okay. And how do you click? How do you click? So, and how do you make sure that it has been clicked or it has been changed? For that, you have a concept called as event listeners. Event listeners. Okay. Let's suppose you have a case. You have an HTML file here. Okay. And you have a JS file here. Okay. This is your HTML file, and this right here is your JavaScript file. Okay. Simple. And let's suppose I have a div. This is a div, and this is the child container div. This is a child container. Okay. And now it also has a button to it. Let's suppose this is a button, and this button, let's suppose it says click me. Okay. This says click me. Now you guys only think, okay, whenever I click on this button, how will my JavaScript know that I have clicked on this particular div inside this particular div, it has a particular button, and that particular button needs to be changed. Or let's suppose that particular button, the div that is there inside that button, that the color of that div needs to be changed. For that, you have event listeners. They will listen to an event. What is an event? Event is a change. Okay. Here you have an event listener. Okay. Here you got an event listener. Okay. Event listener will tell your JS that an event has been occurred and I need to do some changes. Changes could be changing the background color, changing the text, changing the height, changing the width, anything. I need to do some changes, and when I need to do some changes, whenever I have clicked on that button with my mouse. Okay. And there are various types of event listeners. So let's suppose I want to listen to a click. I can easily do that. Okay. Now, then let's suppose I want to listen to an event called change. Let's suppose I have an input field, right? A form has an input field, and let's suppose I'm typing something. Whenever I'm pressing my keyboard, I want an event to occur. So there is an event called on key up. Similarly, there is an event called on key down. Similarly, there is an event called on key press. Okay. This is how you access it by using JavaScript. Okay. I'll tell you a very common example. Let's suppose I quickly come here. Okay. And let me just clear out this part. Let me just cross all the there's also event. There are many events. Okay. There are many events. Let me cross all these files and let me just open form.html and form.js. Yes, I want to split it to the right. Okay. And here, let's suppose I have this body section, and let's suppose I want to have a div, or let's suppose I want to have a button. So I'll make a button. Okay, button, and let's suppose it will say click me. Okay, as simple as that. Now, what do I want? I want that as soon as I click on this button, I want an event to occur. Let's suppose I want an alert message that says the button has been clicked. I want somehow the message should be transferred to my JS that a button has been clicked, and whenever the button has been clicked, I want to display a message that it has been clicked successfully. How do I do that? First of all, I need to give it an ID so that I can track that particular ID which button is there. So I'll give it an ID. Let's suppose button. Okay. Now this button, this ID, I need to catch the reference of this ID in my JS file. How do I do that? There's a way. So let's suppose I declare a variable. Let's suppose var button equals to. Now I need to get the ID of this button. Okay. There is a function that says document dot get element by ID. And what is the ID that I want to get? It is button. Okay. It is button. And as soon as I have this button, I want to add an event listener. Okay. So how do you add an event listener? You do it like this: button dot add event listener. Okay. This accepts two arguments. First one is the event type. Which event do you want to have? Let's suppose I want to have an event called click. And on the click of this button, what function do you want to trigger? Let's suppose I make a function called fn. I want this function to get triggered. Okay. So I have called out this function. That means it needs to be declared. So I'll quickly come here. I'll declare a function called as function fn. This is a normal function that we have declared. Function. And as soon as, so what will happen here? As soon as I click on this button, this function will get invoked. And as this function is getting invoked, I can do whatever I want to with the help of this click. Let's suppose I want an alert. So there is a way to get an alert. So you use an alert keyword, and alert will say the button has been successfully triggered. TRIGGER. Okay. This button has been successfully triggered. Okay. So I am using JS, so I need to link my JS. How do I do that? I use script.src, and here I'll mention the folder name. What is the folder name? It is form.js. I'll quickly open this in my live server. Open with live server. Okay. In the meanwhile, it is opening. I'll tell you what has even happened. What has happened here? Okay. It's very simple. I have a button in the HTML file. This button. Okay. And my use case is as simple. I just want that as soon as I click on this button, I want an event to happen. Let's suppose an event is this, in this case is that I want to successfully trigger it. I want to show an alert message that this button has been successfully triggered. Okay. I just give an ID to it first. After giving an ID, I need to get the reference of that ID, that which ID I'm talking about. Okay, I'm storing it in a variable. So this is document.getElementById button. I got the ID here, and that button, on that button, I need to add an event listener, and that event listener is click. Okay, as soon as I click on this button, I want this function to get invoked. As soon as this function got invoked, I want a message to be printed which says the button has been successfully triggered. Okay, now this is my file. Okay, now see, as I click on this button, I have an alert message which says the button has been successfully triggered. As simple as that. Now what is happening? This is what is called a dynamic. Okay, I as a user, this is my wish that whether I want to show this message or not. Okay, remember on day one I told you that it will make your website dynamic. How will it do that? It will do that with the help. This is just a small example, and this is just a very basic and a small example that I've told you. Okay, I am a user. It's my own wish whether I want to make it happen or not. When I'm clicking, it says the button has been triggered successfully. Okay, as simple as that. Okay, now this was the event revision part. Okay, this is what you will each and every time use in your projects. Event listeners are the most crucial part in the whole JavaScript that will help you to make good and awesome projects, because at the end of the day you want that the users can interact with your websites. How will they do that? How will you have interactivity? How will you add some features? You will do that with the help of a click. As simple as that. Okay. So I know I've fed so much information from the last 10 to 15 minutes. You guys if you guys have any doubts about the event listeners, about the DOM tree, about the ID class, do let me know. I'll be more than happy to clear each and every doubt you have. Too simple, now start. I know, Utpal, it's too easy for you, but let me get the inputs from others as well, right? Okay. So guys, if it is clear, type yes. Otherwise, type no. Sir, add events इसने जहाँ function लिखा है, so हाँ, you can do it here as well. This is just to make you understand and to make your code neater and cleaner. Just so that I have to create a function. You can do it. You can do it here as well. That's why colon is missing in event listener. Where is it missing? I put the brackets here, right? ठीक है, क्लियर है सबको? जतिन, नवीन, उत्पल को क्लियर है, नरेंद्र को क्लियर है. What about others? Is it clear? So I'll be doing a form validation project now. If it is not clear, no, you'll not get to understand it. So we'll be using this what do you call event listeners and DOM manipulation and things like that in the project. So that's why it's very important to understand this topic first. Sir, मतलब fn क्यों नहीं I have so kind of see this is a function, right? And this function I have declared it. Achha, this why haven't I written like this? Okay, got it. So kind of, and so this is a very important, again this is a very important concept. Okay, so I told you, right, if you do this, this will invoke the function. Now listen very carefully. If I do this, first of all, let me close this part out. Let me only have this. Okay. What is the difference if I put round brackets here and if I don't put round brackets there? The difference is if I don't put any round bracket beside my function, it will only trigger whenever I click. It will only trigger whenever I click. That's it. Okay. But if I put the round brackets in the declaration part itself, okay, it will invoke the function as soon as my browser will open. See, I haven't clicked anywhere and this function has been triggered. Why? Because it is not waiting for the click to happen. This is invoking the function immediately, and as soon as this function is getting invoked, I am getting the alert message. Now this will not wait for me to click, so I'm even not able to click it. If I even press OK, and even if I refresh the page, as soon as I refresh the page, this function is getting invoked and this alert message is being shown. However, if I don't do this, it will wait for, so if I'm refreshing it, now it is not now it is not happening. It will wait for my function to get click. As soon as I click, then only it will invoke. As soon as I am clicking, then only it will invoke the function. I hope I'm very clear with this now. Got it, Kanav? Got it, Monu Kumar? Clear hai? Clear the difference between adding the round brackets in the invocation part itself versus not adding? What will the difference between the two? Clear, yes or no? Do let me know. Clear, right? So, with that, let's start our project. Form.html. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. And I have form.js. Let me remove this part as well. Yes, function and form. Yeah, right now. ठीक है? All right. ठीक है. So, what do you mean by form validation? Let's suppose I go into Amazon Prime and I go into login. Yeah, this is the login page, sign up page. Let's suppose. Okay, sign in to join the Prime. Okay, so this is a simple login page. Okay, project is about form validation. Okay, this is a simple login page. Okay, now what is happening? I have some ID, I have some password. If and only if my ID and password are correct, then only I'll be able to log into my Prime account. Right? This one everyone knows. What if I tried to provide the wrong email ID and the wrong password? What will happen in that case? In that case, it will not log in. Right? In that case, it will not log in. It will display some message. It will say that there was a problem. We cannot find an account, or let's suppose your ID and password are not correct. Okay. Let's suppose if I enter this and if I enter some random password, then it will say your password is incorrect. As simple as that. What is happening? It is a type of validation. It is validating your email ID. It is validating your password with the inputs that you have provided. So that input is going that I am catching this input in my JavaScript. I'm catching this input in my JavaScript, whatever I've provided here, and with the help of that input, I'm checking remember yesterday we did assignment operators equal to and triple equal to. With that, I'm checking whether my ID and email are correct. If and only if they're correct, I'm able to log into my Prime account. If they're not correct, I'm seeing this message. It says that your email ID was or your password was incorrect. So this is the project. This is what the project is about. Okay, I quickly implement this. So for that, I'll do one thing. I'll make a form. I already have the boilerplate of HTML. Okay, so I'll make a form. Right, this is a form, obviously. So I'll make a form. I don't need action here, so I'll comment this out. And this form, I'll give it an ID. Let's suppose ID is form itself. All right. Now, after this, I need an input for email ID. I need an input for password. And let's suppose email ID, password, and name. Let's suppose 3. So I'll make 3 input boxes, and each and every one will have a label. Let's suppose label. I don't need this. And here I'll have a username. Okay. After that, I'll have a break statement, and that I'll have an input box. Input for typing the username. Input for username. Input for text. Okay. I don't want the name. I just want an ID. So let's suppose I'm giving this an ID of username. Okay. Similarly, I want it for let's suppose email ID. I want to validate the email ID as well. Or let's suppose only the username and password for now. An email ID I'll just have for verification purpose. Okay. So I'll add a BR tag here as well. Okay. Label input, and similarly I'll just copy it out. I'll just paste it. This one is for let's suppose password, and the type will be password here, and the ID will also be password here. And let me keep it in small case letters. Okay. In the meanwhile, let me quickly open the live server. I think it's already open. If I did close it. Let me open the live server. Open with live server. Yeah. So this is what I have for now. And okay. What if I remove BR? Yeah, let me remove BR from here, as it is looking much neater. Okay. Yep. Okay. I'm not focusing on the CSS part of now. That we'll get time. If we get time, we'll do that. But the main part here is handling the logical part of how the validation will exactly work. Okay. Forget the CSS part for now. And let's suppose I want the same to happen for email ID. This is let's suppose email, and type will be email, and ID will be let's suppose email. Okay. And the most important part, I want whenever the user will submit the information, it will check the email ID, the password, and if it is correct, it will show an output. If it is incorrect, it will show some other output. Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's make a submit button. So how to make a submit button? Input type will be submit. Input will be submit, and the value will be let's suppose submit. Okay. This here we have a submit button. As simple as that. Chalo. Now. See, whenever I'm clicking on this button, nothing is happening. So if I type in some, let's suppose, random names, random password, and random email, okay. If I'm clicking, nothing is happening because I haven't made it dynamic. I haven't made it interactive. If I come on to console as well, as you can see, nothing will be happening. Okay, कुछ नहीं हुआ है, nothing is happening. Okay, so I'll quickly come to the JS part. split right. Okay, and let me link the JS as well. So script src equals to form.js. Chalo. Now I told you, right? So first of all, I have a form here. Okay, I have a form. Now I need to get the reference of this form into my JavaScript file. How will I get a reference? It has an ID of form, obviously. So I can locate it by having an ID of form. It has an ID of form, right? So again, obviously, uh, catch the form ID by its reference, and with the help of that, I can add an event listener to it. So let's suppose var form equals to, how will I get it? I'll get it by document dot add event listener. What is it? No, not add event listener. First I have to get it, right? Document dot get elements by ID. And what is the ID that I've provided? It is form. It is form. And this will come in single quotation, inverted commas. Okay. Similarly, I want whatever value I get in my username, I want to get the reference of that also. So I'll quickly do one thing. I'll make var username equals to document dot get element by ID, and here I will use user name. Okay. Now I need the same thing for password here. So var password equals to document dot get element by ID, and here I have password. Similarly for email, var email equals to document dot get element by ID. Here I have an email with me. Okay. Now what I did so far, I got the reference of form, I got the reference of username, I got the reference of password, I got the reference of email. As simple as that. Okay. Now I want that whenever I submit my form, please listen to me carefully. Whenever I submit my form, I want an event to trigger, and that event will check whether my username and ID that I have mentioned is correct or not. Okay. So how will I do that? I told you, right, how to add an event listener. We do it like form dot add event listener. Okay, and this time my listener will be submit. As soon as I submit my form, I want a function to trigger. I want a function to trigger. Okay, so I've invoked a function, but I have not declared it. So here I will declare a function. So function fn, here I have my function. Okay, so I'm typing a keyword e here. Okay, for those of you who don't know, ignore it for now. E dot, I'll explain you in fact what does it mean. E dot prevent default. Okay, now see. Let's suppose I need to check whether am I even getting the reference or not. So let's suppose if I do alert, and if I do form has been accessed, that means that I've been able to access the form. Now I can check the username and ID. Okay. Now if I come here, okay, so this here says type error form is null. It has an error. Now who will tell me? I explicitly I did this error. This is not a mistake I made. This is a mistake that I deliberately have made for you guys to remember something. Okay. So why do you think that it is showing this error that the form is null? Okay. It has a very silly mistake attached to it. Let's see who will get this first, and let's see who is able to locate this. I have told store submit in a variable. So that how will it make a difference? It is saying that my form is null. So whatever things I store it, its value will not be able to its value will not be able its value will not be accessible entire in my entire form. it has a different error to it, and that error I have told you to. He says passed. Narendra says pass in argument. If I pass in argument, it will not work because it is invoking the function as soon as I'm clicking it. Okay, I have an answer from Naveen. He says all fields have not values in username. Chalo, theek hai. Let's try this out. Let's see if it works or not. So let's suppose I'm typing a username of Ritik Masan, password of let's suppose 12345, and email of let's suppose random @gmail.com. Let me submit. It still says form is null. That means it is still not correct. Let's see who will get this error first. So I made this error deliberately so that you don't make this error in your interviews or in your projects, because it sometimes will eat up your mind and you'll see that how silly the error is. After that you'll be hating yourself. Okay, so that's why for you guys, so that if you face a similar error, you'll be able to resolve it very quickly after watching today's lecture. Get the button of HTML store in variable. It will not work. Okay, so I have an answer from Harsha. I have an answer from Naveen as well. You haven't added defer, so it can't access the form ID in HTML. Excellent, I would say. A shout out to you. That is exactly why my form is not working. अब तो सब बोलेंगे. Now everyone will tell defer because you have got an answer from Harsha. ठीक है. See, remember I told you yesterday, why do we add defer? We add defer because we want our JS file to be loaded after our DOM tree has been loaded. Okay, so I'll tell you what is happening in this case. What is happening in this case? In this case, I have a form.html and I have a form.js. Okay, right. Now this script tag is trying to access form. Okay, but I don't even have form in my DOM tree yet. I don't even have a form in my DOM tree yet. That is the only reason we add a script tag in the body section, right? It will be more clear to you now because you're seeing it live with your eyes. It is not working. It is showing null because the form is not there in my body section. I have two options, either writing defer, or the second option would be writing the script tag in the body section. Okay, so out of all the audience here, only Harsha was able to get it. None of you. I saw some comments from Vikram and Naveen to add a defer in the script tag, but they're not able to justify. They're not able to solve this error. That why is this error coming? Only Harsha Khandevar was able to do that. So well done. Okay, and this is the error that is very silly, and that happens many of the times if you are learning programming, if you are making some projects at the initial stage itself. Okay, clear. So now I think it's more clear why do we use defer and why do we script the script tag in the body, right? I think now it is making much more sense, right? Right, everyone? Yes or no? Yes or no? Right. Chalo, okay. Only Core Anil says yes. What about others? I think Vikram, you also said it, but sir, in the first bootcamp of LetsUpgrade, I heard of Dever. Thanks to you. Most welcome. So I did question this look about 7 message. Which question? That is not the reason why we are getting null, right? We checked that. That is not the reason. Chalo, ठीक है. Now. Let's quickly, and now let's see if the error is coming or not. See, now the error has gone. Now the error has gone by adding a single keyword defer. ठीक है. Now see, if I'm clicking on submit button, it says form has been accessed. That simply means that I'm able to access the form now, and I can perform whatever logic I want to with the click of it. Chalo, great. Now let's remove this alert sign. Okay. So now I want whatever value the user will type, I want to store it in some variable. Okay. So var username value equals to how do you get a value? You get it by a method called as dot value. So this will give you whatever value you have in the value input field, in the text input field. Acha, before that, prevent default. Okay, what does prevent default do? See, I'll tell you practical example. So let's suppose I'm trying to console.log username value. Okay, in the first case, let's suppose I don't use e.prevent default. Okay, now let's see. I'm typing a username of Ritik. I'm typing a random password and typing a random email. And as soon as I click submit, okay, you don't see any username value. Why do you not see any user value? Because it was there, but it was there only for a flash of a second. Because the nature of the form, what does a form do? So if I talk about a full stack development part of it, what does a form do? A form, when you click on submit, it will immediately send the data to your backend server, and that server will check whether the user credentials are valid or not, and with that it will give you an output. Okay, that is the default activity. What is the default activity of a form? To send the credentials immediately to the backend part, and that will validate for you. But here we are not sending any data to the backend. We are just validating it by using JavaScript. So in order to prevent the default activity of form to happening, we have to use e.prevent default. Now if I do this, now if I press submit, now I will get a username submit, because it is not sending the data. Whatever I am printing, it is getting stayed in my console. It is getting stuck there. It is not going to the backend. So that is why we use prevent default, in order to prevent the default activity of form of happening. Okay. Now, so I have successfully got the username. Similarly, I want var password also. So how will I get the password? Let's suppose password value equals to username dot password. Again, I think that's where we have stored it. Var email equals to not username. Sorry, not username. It is password dot value. Password dot value. And var email is email dot value. ठीक है. ठीक है. Now let's see whether I'm able to get these value in my console or not. So I'll console.log what username value, what password value, and what is other, the email value. Okay. And when will it happen? Whenever this function is triggered. And when will the function be triggered? Whenever I will submit my form. So let's come here and let me type some password and let me click enter. See, as soon as I clicked enter, I got the username first. Okay. I got the password second, and I got the username, that is third. Now the task is very simple. I have my user ID. Somehow I got the user ID from so whatever user ID the user has typed, I have got it in my console. Whatever password the user has typed, I got it in my password in the console. Whatever email ID the user has typed, I have got it in my console. Now I have all the three values. Yes, Naveen, it's an event. Okay. Now I have all the three values. Now my task is very simple. Okay. Okay. Now my task is very simple. Okay. I will just check these values whether they are present or not, whether they are confirmed. So let me set a username. Okay. Let's suppose I'll set a username. I'll check if username value is triple equal to, let's suppose I want to set my username as Ritik. Okay. And what should be the password value? Let's suppose password value is, let's suppose I am giving क्या थे, let's give it 1 2 3 1 2 4. ठीक है. If I have these credentials, ठीक है, I will just say alert credentials are valid, successfully logged in. ठीक है. Else nothing. I will just alert incorrect credentials try some other password or username, let's suppose. Yeah. So what have I done here? I've got the username and I'll check if it is this keyword or not. And I've got the password value. I'll check whether if it is this keyword or not. Okay. It can be a string, it can be a number, it can be anything. Okay. And I'll check if I'm matching, if my username and password are matching, means they're validating. I'll just say credentials are valid. Otherwise, I'll just say credentials are not valid. Okay. Let's try it out. Let me type the wrong ID and password first. Let's see, I'm giving a wrong ID. And now I click on submit. It says incorrect credentials, try some other password. As simple as that. Okay. Now, let me try the correct password that I give. So what is the password that I give? I give username as Ritik. I give password as 123. And the email ID can be anything. I'm not validating the email ID. If you want, you can validate that as well. Let's suppose I got any random. Now let's suppose I want to submit it. It says incorrect credentials. Okay, let me see what am I getting in the email ID and password. So I'll quickly console.log these values. Okay. So the email ID. Okay, I see. Don't see. Let me give any email ID as well. So let's suppose and email ID value equals to Ritik Masand 10 @gmail.com. ठीक है. Now let's check. Now let me get this value. Let me get the password and let me get the email ID as well. So the email ID is content@gmail.com. Again, it says, I think it is a type error. Let me try double equal to if that is making an error. One, two, three, and this. Now it says credentials are valid and I have been successfully logged in. Okay. Why is double equal to not working? Because I have taken a string here, and that value which I'm providing is not a string, it's a character. I don't see if it is a character or not. So let me see the type of triple equal to and triple equal to. Okay, so I'll just console.log. Instead of this, I'll say type of this, and instead of this, I'll just say type of this, and I'll say type of email, because I need to check what is the type that I'm getting is, so that I can use triple equal to operators. Okay, so I'm printing console, and let me try some password. It says string and a string, and why is it not giving the type of? Okay, I've provided and my bad. Right, now let's check. So it is a string in all the cases. This is also acting as a string. Okay, but this is a number which I'm providing here. Now it is also a number. Okay, acha. So you got the error, right? You got the error because this is a string. It is acting like a string, but we want to act it like a number. So for that, we'll use a double equal to, so that it will not check the data type. It will just check the value. Whatever value is there, it will just check that. So I'll just comment this part out. And this was the project. This was all the project. So if I type the correct password, it will say credentials are valid, successfully logged in. And if I type in the incorrect, let's suppose if I type in the wrong email ID, it will say incorrect credentials, and please try again after some time, or please try with some other password. Can we validate against a user data? Yeah, so if you are using a backend, obviously whatever email ID password you make, it gets stored into the database, and as soon as you click on submit, the form will go to the database, will validate it, and will bring you the output. Okay, that is why we are using prevent default, because we do not want to send the data. We only want to have the data so that we can use it inside our validation process. All right, now I want you guys to add some CSS into this, and with that also, just give me a second. Okay, so yeah, I was saying that please try to add some CSS also with this into this project, and also try to host it. I hope all of you must be knowing how to host your applications, HTML and CSS applications and Java applications. And after hosting, if you're able to do that, please, you can also showcase your project on a LinkedIn that I have done a form validation. It is a good beginner project if you want to have it. And if you're having that project also, you can showcase it on LinkedIn. You can tag LetsUpgrade, you can tag me, you can tag the team, and you can also showcase it with your friends. As simple as that. And you can show off that I made a project using JS. Okay, chalo. With that being said, let's wind up the session. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yes, so prevent default will prevent the default activity of a form. The default activity of a form is to send the data to the server, which we do not want. So that's why we are using prevent default. So that this data stays here with us. All right. Chalo. Chalo, ठीक है. So with that being said, right, so you got your task, right? You have to complete the project. You have to add some CSS and some animations if you can. Then you can showcase it on LinkedIn, tagging me, tagging LetsUpgrade on all the team, and also showcasing amongst all your friends. Okay, this is what is a task for you, and if you are able to do that, well and good. That means you have got a good hang of JavaScript. And yes. So the link. Okay, I'll give the link, code share. So you already have this link in the description box .abc. Okay, and this is yesterday's code. Okay, and I'll okay. Chalo, ठीक है. No issues everyone. ठीक है. So I'll do one thing. I'll quickly copy all the part. Yes, and also in the meanwhile, please mark your attendance so that you're also eligible for the certificate. We started from here. No, we started from here, I think. Right, JavaScript. Okay. So you want the whole code, right? Okay. I think someone has someone has changed the code. So I will have to now. I know you guys gonna hate me for this, but I'll have to make another separate link. And acha, so I will make another separate link now. So let me make it by let's upgrade name. So abc dot code, and let's upgrade. Okay. This is the new link that we'll be working on. एक second, let it load. To share dot. Yeah, so this is the new link that I have created. Okay. This link I'll share it with the share it with the team, and it will be, I think, most probably be pasted or attached in the description box, and you guys can get the reference from it. So I'll make another link. I'll copy all this code. It's starting from here, I think. Yes, if I'm not wrong. And all these notes, I'll create a separate link and I'll paste it there, and I'll share that link with the team, and most probably they'll add it in the description box. And tomorrow's code as well, I think tomorrow's code has also disappeared, so I also have the code here. Okay, I also have the code here on day2.html, I think day2.js. I'll also add tomorrow's code, yesterday's code, and I will also paste it. All right, chalo, ठीक है. With that being said, let's wind up the session, and I hope you guys got to learn a lot, and enjoyed this session. Okay, we'll now meet again in some other bootcamp. Till then, please take care and please make sure to code and practice. And bye.